The war ended not with a final battle, but with the complete psychological collapse of Galactic Council resistance. Faced with the choice between total destruction and negotiated surrender, the alien leadership chose survival over pride. But the galaxy they surrendered to was fundamentally different from the one that had first discovered Earth 2 years earlier. President Kim Seong-ho of the unified Korean Peninsula worked closely with American Secretary of State Williams to establish new galactic treaties that would govern relations between humans and alien species. But these agreements were not the gentle diplomatic arrangements that had maintained peace among herbivore civilizations for millennia. The new treaties were predator contracts written by hunters who understood that prey animals required clear rules and absolute certainty about consequences for breaking those rules. Every clause was designed to maintain human dominance while providing alien species with security and prosperity in exchange for cooperation. Dr. Shin Bo-ra became Earth's first galactic ambassador and established protocols that seemed reasonable to alien negotiators but actually ensured continued human control through carefully structured dependency relationships. Any species could challenge human decisions, but they had to be prepared for the consequences of being wrong about human intentions or capabilities. The aliens discovered that humans, especially Americans, did not want to rule the galaxy directly, through traditional colonial administration. That would require too much bureaucracy and not enough hunting, which went against their fundamental predator nature. Instead, they created a system where Earth became the galaxy's unofficial enforcer of peace and stability. When alien species had disputes, they could not resolve through normal diplomatic channels. They came to human arbitrators for final judgment. The humans would listen to all sides, study the evidence, and make decisions that were usually fair and reasonable. But everyone understood that human judgments were final and would be enforced through overwhelming military power if necessary. Captain Park Ki-young established the first human military base outside the solar system, on a strategically located asteroid that commanded major galactic trade routes. The base was officially described as a defensive installation, but everyone knew it was a statement that humans could project power anywhere in the galaxy within days of making the decision to do so. The galaxy learned to live with predators in charge and surprisingly discovered that the new system worked better than anyone had expected. Piracy disappeared almost overnight when criminal organizations learned that humans considered hunting pirates an entertaining recreational activity, rather than tedious police work. The year was 2087 and humanity had finally cracked the secret of faster-than-light travel. Admiral Kim Dae-ho stood on the bridge of the starship Freedom, watching the stars blur past the view screen. He was a tough man, with gray hair and sharp eyes, who had served as a Navy SEAL for 20 years before becoming a space commander. His hands were steady as he gripped the command chair, knowing that this mission would change everything for the human race. Dr. Park Sora worked at her science station, her fingers dancing over the holographic displays. She was brilliant and had spent her whole life studying alien life. She had dreamed of this moment since she was a little girl, reading about space exploration. Her dark hair was tied back, and her eyes sparkled with excitement as she monitored the ship's sensors, looking for signs of alien civilization. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo sat at the tactical station, his military training keeping him alert for any danger. He was young, but experienced. Having fought in the Mars colony wars, his job was to protect the ship and crew from any threats they might encounter. He checked and rechecked the weapon systems even though Admiral Kim had ordered them to approach peacefully. Sergeant Major Choi Mina handled communications from her station. She was the best at her job and could speak 12 different human languages. Her equipment was ready to translate any alien signals they might receive. She had been chosen for this mission because of her skill at making first contact with unknown cultures. The Freedom was humanity's most advanced ship, equipped with the best technology Earth could build. It carried gifts from every nation on Earth, including music, art, literature, and examples of human culture. The crew of 200 people represented all of humanity, and they knew the weight of responsibility on their shoulders. When they dropped out of faster-than-light travel near the Kepler 442 system, they immediately detected massive, artificial structures orbiting the fourth planet. Admiral Kim ordered the ship to approach slowly with all weapons powered down and broadcasting messages of peace on all frequencies. The alien ships that came to meet them were unlike anything humans had ever imagined. They were huge and sleek with a dark metal surface that seemed to absorb light. The largest ship was 10 times bigger than the Freedom and bristled with weapon systems that made human technology look primitive. Dr. Park, Sora gasped, as her sensors analyzed the alien vessels. The technology was thousands of years ahead of anything Earth possessed. The power readings were off the charts and the materials used in construction were unknown to human science. She quickly began recording. Everything for later study. A signal came through on the communications array, and Sergeant Major Choi Mina worked frantically to decode it. The alien language was complex, but her computers slowly began to make sense of the patterns. The first message was simple but ominous. Submit to the authority of the Valerian Galactic Empire or face destruction. Admiral Kim took a deep breath and ordered a response to be sent. We are humans from the planet Earth. We come in peace, seeking friendship and trade. With your people, we wish to learn about your civilization and share knowledge for the benefit of all species. The alien response came quickly and was much longer. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jinwoo noticed that more alien ships were appearing on the sensors surrounding the Freedom. The aliens identified themselves as the Valerian Empire rulers of 12 star systems for 3,000 years. They demanded that humanity acknowledge their superiority and submit to their rule. Admiral Kim felt. His jaw tightened but kept his voice calm when he responded. Humanity has never bowed to tyrants, and we will not start now. We offer friendship as equals, or we will leave in peace, but we will never be slaves. The alien ships moved closer, and Admiral Kim could see they were preparing to fire. He ordered his crew to battle stations but told them not to fire first. The Freedom was outnumbered 50-1, and their weapons were no match for alien technology. A new alien voice came over the communications. System colder and more threatening than the first. This is High Commander Zelos Kryn of the Valerian Fleet. You will transport your leader to the neutral moon of Zarian for negotiations. Any attempt to flee will result in your immediate destruction, Dr. Park Sora looked at the tactical display showing dozens of alien ships in attack formation. Admiral Kim knew they had no choice. He selected a small team including Dr. Park, Lieutenant Commander Lee, and Sergeant Major Choi to accompany him to the surface as their shuttle approached the barren moon. Admiral Kim briefed his team, "Remember, we represent all of humanity today. Show no fear and give no ground on our basic rights. We are free people and we will remain free no matter what they threaten." The meeting place was a simple dome structure on the moon's surface filled with breathing air for both species. Admiral Kim led his team inside and came face to face with the aliens for the first time. The Valerians were tall and thin with gray skin and large black eyes that seemed to look right through him. High Commander Zelos Kryn wore elaborate armor that hummed with energy. His voice was like ice when he spoke. Your species is primitive and weak. You will surrender your star charts, abandon your colonies, and submit to Valerian rule. Your people will serve the Empire as workers and soldiers. Admiral. Kim stood straight and looked the alien commander in the eye. Humanity chooses its own path. We have fought for freedom on our own world, and we will fight for it among the stars. We offer friendship, but we will never accept slavery. The alien commander's eyes grew darker. You dare refuse the lawful authority of the Empire. Your insolence will not be tolerated. The natural order of the galaxy places the strong above the weak, and you are weak, Dr. Park. Sora stepped forward trying to explain human history and their struggles for independence, but the aliens laughed at what they called weak emotional attachments. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jinwoo kept his hand near his weapon as more Valerian soldiers entered the dome. The situation grew worse when Sergeant Major Choi Mina intercepted alien communications, revealing plans to enslave humanity and strip Earth of its resources. She quickly passed the information to Admiral Kim, who realized the negotiations were a trap. When Admiral Kim again refused to surrender humanity's freedom, High Commander Kryn declared that he had committed treason against the Galactic Order. The Valerian soldiers raised their energy weapons and surrounded the human delegation. Admiral Kim looked at his team and saw fear in their eyes, but also determination. He spoke quietly but firmly. Whatever happens here today, remember that we came as free people and we will die as free people. Earth must know what happened here and they must be ready for what comes next. The last thing Admiral Kim saw before the Valyrian soldiers stunned him unconscious was the cold satisfaction in High Commander Kryn's alien eyes. He knew that this first contact had gone terribly wrong, and that humanity was now at war with an empire that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. As the human delegation was dragged away to Valyrian prison ships, Admiral Kim's final thought was a prayer that Earth would learn of their fate and prepare for the storm that was coming. The galaxy would soon learn that humans would rather die fighting than live as slaves. 3 months had passed since Admiral Kim and his team had vanished into the darkness of space. Earth waited for news, but none came. President Yoon Soo-min paced the floors of the United Nations Space Council building in New Geneva, her face lined with worry. The silence from the Kepler 442 system was deafening, and every day that passed made her fear the worst had happened. Captain Park Min-ho commanded the second expedition to find the missing crew. His ship, the Defiance, was faster and better armed than the Freedom, but when they reached the Zirian system, they found only debris floating in the cold vacuum of space. Pieces of Admiral Kim's shuttle drifted among the asteroids like metal tombstones marking the grave of humanity's first contact back on Earth. The news hit like a physical blow. President Yoon addressed the world with tears in her eyes, telling billions of people that their brave explorers were missing and presumed dead. The reaction was immediate and intense. Protests filled the streets demanding action, while military recruitment offices saw lines of volunteers ready to fight an enemy they had never seen. Meanwhile, Admiral Kim Dae-ho sat in a cell on the Valyrian capital world of Vorthak. The prison was a massive structure that housed thousands of beings from across the galaxy who had dared to oppose the Empire. The walls were made of some alien metal that absorbed sound, making the place eerily quiet except for the occasional scream from the torture chambers. Kim had lost weight during his imprisonment, but his eyes still burned with defiance. The Valyrians had tried everything to break him. They used pain machines that could make a man beg for death. They used mind probes that felt like white-hot needles, piercing his skull. They used drugs that made him see his worst nightmares, but still he refused to give them Earth's location or any information about human military capabilities. In the cell next to him was a Korvax warrior named Thek, who had been imprisoned for leading a rebellion on his homeworld. Thek was a large reptilian creature with scales like armor and eyes like burning coals. He had been in the prison for 50 years and had seen thousands of prisoners come and go, but he had never seen anyone resist Valyrian torture like the human. "You are different from the others," Thek said in broken universal language. "Most species break after the first session, but you have endured for months. What gives you such strength?" Admiral Kim looked at his alien cellmate and spoke in a voice hoarse from screaming. "Freedom is not something you can torture out of a man. It lives in the heart and soul where your machines cannot reach. My people have fought tyrants for thousands of years, and we will keep fighting until the last human draws breath." Thek nodded slowly, understanding something he had not grasped before. The human spoke of freedom, not as a political concept, but as something sacred worth any sacrifice. The Korvax had fought for territory and resources, but these humans fought for something much more powerful. In another part of the prison complex, Dr. Park Sora, Lieutenant Commander Lee Jinwoo, and Sergeant Major Choi Mina were being held in a research facility where Valyrian scientists studied their captives like laboratory animals. The aliens were fascinated by human biology and psychology, running endless tests to understand what made humans so stubborn and unpredictable. Dr. Park had initially tried to cooperate, hoping to save her team's lives, but when she learned the Valyrians planned to use human genetic material to create biological weapons, she stopped helping. The torture that followed was brutal, but she discovered that humans could endure far more pain than their captors expected. Lieutenant Commander Lee had been subjected to combat simulations where Valyrian military analysts studied his tactical thinking. They were amazed by human creativity in warfare and the willingness to use unconventional tactics that broke all established rules of engagement. Lee gave them false information whenever possible, leading them to believe humans were weaker than they actually were. Sergeant Major Choi had become the focus of communication experts who wanted to understand how humans organized their societies. The Valerians could not comprehend a species that chose its leaders instead of being ruled by the strongest. They saw democracy as chaos and could not understand how it could produce effective military leadership. Emperor Theron Vex finally decided that the human prisoners had outlived their usefulness. He was an ancient being who had ruled the empire for over 1,000 years and had never encountered a species that refused to submit. The humans were becoming a symbol of resistance to other imprisoned species and had to be eliminated. The trial was announced with great fanfare across the empire. Admiral Kim would be charged with terrorism, refusing lawful authority and corrupting the natural order of the galaxy. The proceedings would be held in the great arena of Vorthak, before an audience of millions with the execution broadcast to every world in Valerian space. On the day of the trial, Admiral Kim was dragged in chains to the arena floor. The massive structure could hold 1 million spectators and every seat was filled. Valerian citizens had come to see the defiant human finally broken and humiliated. Emperor Theron Vex sat on a throne high above the arena wearing robes that sparkled with captured starlight. High Commander Zelos Kryn read the charges in a voice that echoed throughout the arena. The human had refused to acknowledge Valerian authority, had corrupted other species with ideas of rebellion, and had committed acts of terrorism against the Galactic Order. Each charge carried the death penalty, and there was no question of innocence. When Admiral Kim was given a chance to speak in his defense, the arena fell silent, expecting pleas for mercy or offers of cooperation. Instead, Kim stood as straight as his chains would allow and delivered a speech that would be remembered across the galaxy for centuries. I am Admiral Kim Dae-ho of the human race, and I do not recognize the authority of this court or this empire. He began, his voice carrying clearly through the arena. Humanity has never bowed to tyrants, and we never will. We are born free, and we will die free. The audience began to mutter angrily, but Kim continued, speaking louder. You call us primitive, but we have something you have lost over your 3,000 years of rule. We have courage, we have honor. We have the strength to fight for what is right, even when facing impossible odds. Emperor Theron Vex leaned forward on his throne, his ancient face twisted with rage. Silence this insect, he commanded, but Kim kept speaking. To my fellow prisoners listening to this broadcast, I say this. Freedom is not dead as long as one person refuses to kneel to the oppressed species. Across your empire, I say, rise up and fight. The Valerians bleed just like anyone else. And to my people on Earth, I say this. Make them pay for every drop of human blood. Make them pay for every chain they forge. Make them remember that they tangled with the wrong species. The trial lasted only minutes more. Kim was found guilty on all charges and sentenced to death by hanging, the traditional Valerian method for the worst criminals. As the guards led him to the gallows that had been erected, in the center of the arena, Kim showed no fear. The execution platform was made of alien wood from the first world the Valerians had conquered. The rope was woven from fibers of a plant that grew only on their capital world. It was a symbol of Valerian power over life and death. But Kim saw it as just another tool of oppression, as the noose was placed around his neck. Admiral Kim spoke his final words loud enough for the entire galaxy to hear. Tell Earth that Admiral Kim Dae-ho died as he lived, a free man. Tell them that the Valerians made a mistake when they chose humans as their enemy. Tell them to make these tyrants pay for every life they take. The execution was carried out with billions watching across the empire. The Valerians expected this display of power to crush the spirits of rebellious species. Instead, they had created something far more dangerous. They had given the galaxy a martyr and humanity a cause worth dying for. As Admiral Kim's body hung lifeless in the arena, Emperor Theron Vex smiled, thinking he had ended the threat. Instead, he had lit a fire that would burn across the galaxy and consume his empire. The death of one brave human had sealed the fate of the Valerian Galactic Empire. The grainy footage of Admiral Kim's execution reached Earth through intercepted Valerian broadcasts and spread across every human settlement like wildfire. From the gleaming cities of Earth to the mining colonies of the asteroid belt, from the terraforming stations on Mars to the research bases on Europa, every human being watched in horror and rage as their hero died with dignity, while alien tyrants cheered. President Yoon Soo-min stood before the emergency session of the United Nations, her hands shaking with barely controlled fury. as she addressed the representatives of every human nation and colony. The chamber was packed with officials who had traveled from across the solar system to witness this historic moment, citizens of Earth and all human settlements. She began, her voice steady despite the storm of emotions raging inside her. Today we have witnessed an act of war against our species. Admiral Kim Dae-ho and his team went to the stars carrying our hopes for peaceful contact with alien civilizations. Instead, they found tyrants who believe might makes right. The chamber erupted in angry shouts and calls for immediate military action. President Yoon raised her hand for silence, her eyes blazing with determination that reminded everyone why she had been elected to lead humanity in its expansion to the stars. The Valerian Galactic Empire has shown us their true nature, she continued. They are slavers and murderers who have ruled through fear for 3,000 years. They believe humans will bow down like every other species they have conquered. They are about to learn how wrong they are. The president's declaration of war was unanimous. Every human government from Earth to the outer colonies voted to mobilize for total war against the Valerian Empire. The vote was followed by the largest military mobilization in human history, as billions of people volunteered to serve in whatever capacity they could. General Oh Hyun-soo was chosen to lead the war effort. He was a grizzled veteran of the Mars Independence War and the Europa mining conflicts. A man who understood that sometimes freedom could only be won through blood. He stood before a holographic map of known space, studying the vast distances between human territory and Valerian space. The odds were staggering. The Valerian Empire controlled 12 star systems with billions of soldiers and thousands of warships. Humanity had barely begun to explore beyond their own solar system and possessed only a handful of interstellar vessels. But General Oh had learned long ago that wars were not won by superior numbers alone. They were won by superior will. Dr. Nam Ji-hai worked around the clock in the secure laboratories beneath the lunar research station, studying every scrap of data from Admiral Kim's mission. The Valerian technology was indeed far ahead of human capabilities, but she had found weaknesses that could be exploited. Their energy shields were powerful, but they had never faced kinetic weapons moving at the velocities humans could achieve. The Valerians had grown comfortable in their technological superiority, she explained to the Military Planning Committee. They expect their enemies to use energy weapons like they do. Our railguns and missile systems will surprise them, because they have never encountered anything like them. Captain Song Woo-jin had been Admiral Kim's student and closest friend. He now commanded the Earth Defense Fleet and was tasked with training a new generation of space warriors. Song gathered the best pilots and soldiers from every human military and began the most intensive training program in human history. The volunteers came from everywhere. Young people who had grown up dreaming of exploring the stars, veterans of Earth's wars who knew how to fight against impossible odds, civilians who had never held a weapon but burned with desire to avenge Admiral Kim. Every human settlement contributed its best and brightest to the cause. The training was brutal and dangerous. Song pushed his people to their limits and beyond, because he knew the Valerians would show no mercy. Human fighters learned to think like their enemies while maintaining the creativity and unpredictability that made humans dangerous in combat. Meanwhile, the industrial might of Earth was transformed overnight. Factories that had produced consumer goods retooled to manufacture weapons and armor. Shipyards that built commercial vessels now constructed warships. The asteroid mining operations expanded rapidly to provide the raw materials needed for humanity's war machine. President Yoon visited the construction sites, personally speaking to workers who labored 18-hour shifts to build humanity's instruments of war. She saw ordinary people transformed by purpose welders and engineers who knew their work might determine the fate of the human race. Factory workers who had never thought about war now produced bullets and bombs with the same care they had once put into making household appliances. The Luna shipyards became the beating heart of human war production. Massive construction bays that had once built exploration vessels now assembled warships designed specifically to fight Valerian technology. Each ship incorporated lessons learned from Admiral Kim's encounter and featured redundant systems that could function even under heavy damage. Communications specialists worked to establish intelligence networks throughout known space. They intercepted Valerian broadcasts and slowly built a picture of the Empire's military capabilities. They also began spreading word of Admiral Kim's defiant speech to oppressed species throughout Valerian space. The news that reached Earth about the survivors of Admiral Kim's mission only fueled humanity's determination. Dr. Park Sora, Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo, and Sergeant Major Choi Mina were confirmed alive but enslaved in Valerian research facilities. This information led to the planning of rescue missions that would serve as humanity's first strikes against the Empire. General O established military academies on every human world, where children learned not just mathematics and science but also military history and the principles of asymmetric warfare. Human culture began to change as peaceful exploration gave way to preparation for the greatest war in human history. The psychological transformation was as important as the military preparation. Humans had always been competitive and aggressive, but now those traits were focused on a single enemy. Recruitment posters showed Admiral Kim's final moments with the words, "Never forget, never surrender," printed underneath. Captain Song received reports from intelligence operatives who had infiltrated the outer regions of Valerian space. They brought word that other species were beginning to stir as news of human resistance spread. The Korvax, the Zentari, and dozens of other enslaved peoples were starting to believe that rebellion might be possible. As months passed, Earth's industrial output reached levels that amazed even the planners. New technologies emerged from the pressure of wartime innovation. Weapons that could penetrate energy shields, armor that could deflect directed energy attacks, ships that could outmaneuver anything the Valerians had built. The first human strike force was assembled under Captain Song's command. 12 ships crewed by volunteers who understood they might not return home. Each vessel was equipped with experimental weapons and carried teams trained in Valerian combat tactics. The target was a mining operation on Kepler 438b, where intelligence suggested human prisoners were being held. President Yoon addressed the strike force before their departure, standing before the assembled crews in the main hangar of Luna Shipyard. "You carry with you the hopes and prayers of every human being in the solar system," she told them. "You go to show the galaxy that humanity will fight for its own general." O watched the ships depart, knowing that this first mission would determine whether humanity's war against the Empire was possible or merely a noble gesture of defiance. The strike force disappeared into faster-than-light travel, carrying humanity's fury toward an enemy that had ruled the galaxy for 3,000 years. As Earth continued its preparation for total war against the Valerian Empire, one thing became clear to everyone involved. This was not just a war for survival, it was a war for the soul of the galaxy itself. Admiral Kim had died to prove that freedom was worth any sacrifice. Now all of humanity would prove that some things were worth fighting for. No matter what the odds, the transformation of human civilization from peaceful explorers to galactic warriors was complete. Earth had awakened its fury, and the Valerian Empire was about to learn what happened when humans decided to go to war. Captain Song Woo-jin stood on the bridge of the warship Vengeance, watching the swirling colors of faster-than-light travel through the main view screen. 6 months had passed since Admiral Kim's execution, and now humanity was ready to strike back. The 12 ships of Strike Force Alpha represented the best of human military technology, and the burning desire for revenge that had consumed Earth. Each ship in the Strike Force carried a crew of volunteers who had trained for this moment since the day Admiral Kim died. The Vengeance was the flagship equipped with railguns that could fire projectiles at a significant fraction of light speed, and missiles armed with nuclear warheads that could crack open a small moon. The other ships carried specialized equipment for infiltration, rescue operations, and electronic warfare. Lieutenant Commander Park Yoon-ji studied the tactical displays at her station. She had been born on Mars and had fought in the mining wars before volunteering for the Space Fleet. Her job was to coordinate the ground assault on the Valerian mining facility. Her team of Marines had trained for months in abandoned asteroid mines, learning to fight in zero-gravity and hostile environments. Major Kim Young-soo commanded the rescue teams that would locate and extract any human prisoners. The intelligence reports suggested that Dr. Park Sora and Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo were being held at the facility, along with possibly hundreds of enslaved beings from Other species his teams carried portable medical equipment and emergency life support systems. The target was the mining operation on Kepler 438b, a barren world, rich in rare elements that the Valerians used to power their advanced technology. The Q facility was heavily guarded, but intelligence suggested that the Valerians had grown overconfident after 3,000 years of unchallenged rule. They did not expect anyone to be bold enough to attack them directly. When Strike Force Alpha dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the Kepler 438 system, they immediately began passive sensor scans of the target. The mining facility was even larger than intelligence had suggested, with orbital platforms and surface installations that covered half a continent. Valerian patrol ships moved in predictable patterns that suggested routine rather than genuine vigilance. Captain Song smiled grimly as he watched the enemy ships follow their programmed routes. The Valerians had forgotten what it meant to face an enemy that could think for itself. Human warfare had always emphasized adaptability and creative thinking, while Valerian tactics relied on overwhelming technological superiority. The approach began with electronic warfare, specialists jamming Valerian communications and sensor networks. Human ships used stealth technology that made them nearly invisible to alien detection systems. The strike force moved through the outer system like ghosts, positioning themselves for simultaneous attacks on multiple targets. Sergeant Major Lim Hae-won commanded the technical teams that would sabotage the mining equipment and processing facilities. Her background in demolitions made her perfect for the job of ensuring that the Valerians would get nothing useful from this facility, even if the human attack failed. Her teams carried enough explosives to level a small city. The first phase of the attack began when human fighters launched from the capital ships and swept toward the Valerian patrol vessels. The alien pilots had never faced opponents who used such aggressive tactics. Human fighters attacked from multiple directions, simultaneously using their superior maneuverability to avoid the slower Valerian energy. Weapons Valerian Commander Thex Morin stared in disbelief at his tactical displays as his patrol ships were systematically destroyed by invisible attackers. The human fighters appeared on sensors for only seconds before vanishing again, their hit and run tactics making it impossible to target them effectively. On the surface of Kepler 438b, the Valerian guards at the mining facility received confused reports of battles in space, but their communications with the orbital platforms had been cut. The facility commander, General Vex Thorin, ordered increased security but had no idea what he was facing. Lieutenant Commander Park led her Marines in dropships that plunged through the planet's thin atmosphere toward the mining facility. The ships used heat shields and electronic countermeasures to avoid detection, but the landing was still dangerous. Valerian ground defenses included automated weapon systems and energy barriers. The Marines hit the ground running, using explosives to breach the outer perimeter and kinetic weapons to punch through Valerian energy shields. The aliens had never faced opponents who used such direct, brutal tactics. Human soldiers charged through weapons fire that should have stopped them, showing a disregard for personal safety that amazed and terrified their enemies. Inside the facility, Major Kim's rescue teams fought through corridors filled with surprised Valerian guards. The aliens were deadly with their energy weapons, but humans had trained for close-quarters combat where superior reflexes and aggression could overcome technological advantages. Deep in the mining complex, Sergeant Major Choi Mina heard the explosions and weapon fire echoing through the tunnels. She had been organizing prisoner resistance for months, teaching alien slaves how to fight back against their oppressors. When she heard human voices shouting commands, she knew rescue had finally come. Dr. Park Sora was in a research laboratory when the attack began. Valerian scientists had been using her knowledge of human biology to develop weapons, but she had been feeding them false information for months. When human Marines blasted through the laboratory doors, she felt tears of joy streaming down her face. The battle for the facility was fierce but brief. Valerian soldiers fought with disciplined tactics, but could not adapt quickly enough to human unpredictability. Human forces used smoke grenades, psychological warfare, and coordinated team movements that confused and scattered their enemies. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jinwoo had been held in a high-security cell, but when the power systems failed during the attack, he used his military training to escape. He joined the human assault, teams fighting his way through the facility toward other prisoners who needed rescue. The most difficult part of the operation was evacuating hundreds of prisoners from dozens of different species. Many were too weak to walk after years of forced labor, while others had been mentally broken by Valerian torture techniques. Human medics worked frantically to stabilize the worst cases, while Marines held defensive positions. Sergeant Major Lim's demolition teams planted charges throughout the facility targeting the main processing equipment, power generators, and computer systems. The explosions that followed could be seen from orbit as the entire mining operation disappeared in flames and debris. The withdrawal was as carefully planned. As the attack, human ships collected the rescue teams and prisoners before Valerian reinforcements could arrive. The strike force disappeared into faster-than-light travel, just as enemy warships reached the system, leaving behind a completely destroyed facility and a very clear message. The psychological impact of the raid was immediate. News of the successful attack spread through Valerian space, faster than light travel, as survivors reported that humans had appeared from nowhere, struck with devastating effectiveness, and vanished without a trace. The image of Valerian invincibility had been shattered. On worlds throughout the Empire, enslaved species whispered about the humans who had rescued their own people and freed hundreds of aliens in the process. The successful raid proved that the Valerians could be defeated and that resistance was possible. Emperor Theron Vex received the reports with growing fury. He had ruled for over 1,000 years, and no species had ever successfully attacked Valerian territory. The humans had not only destroyed valuable equipment but had rescued prisoners and made the Empire look weak. General Vex Thorin survived the attack, but his career was destroyed. He reported that human tactics were unlike anything. In Valerian military experience, the humans fought without regard for their own safety, used weapons that ignored energy shields, and displayed a level of coordination that suggested extensive training and planning. The rescued prisoners provided valuable intelligence about Valerian military capabilities and plans. Dr. Park Sora revealed that the aliens were developing biological weapons designed to target human DNA. Lieutenant Commander Lee Jin-woo reported on Valerian ship designs, and Tactical Doctrine Sergeant Major Choi Mina brought information about resistance movements throughout the Empire. Captain Song led Strike Force Alpha back to Earth as heroes, but he knew this was only the beginning. The successful raid had proven that humans could fight the Valerians, but it had also guaranteed massive retaliation. The Empire would not allow such defiance to go unpunished. President Yoon addressed humanity from the United Nations building, her face glowing with pride as she announced the success of the first human military operation against the Valerian Empire. Admiral Kim has been avenged, she declared, and this is only the beginning. The rescued aliens were taken to secure facilities where human scientists studied their technology and learned about conditions throughout the Empire. Many chose to stay and fight alongside humanity, becoming the first members of what would eventually become a galactic resistance movement. General O began planning larger operations. Based on the lessons learned from the Kepler 438b raid, human forces had proven they could surprise and defeat Valerian defenders, but future operations would face enemies who were alert and prepared for Huma. 2 years after Admiral Kim's execution, the Galactic Rebellion reaches its climax with a massive assault on Vorthak, the Valerian capital world. The combined fleet includes ships from dozens of species, but humanity leads the charge with their largest and most powerful vessels yet constructed. President Yoon Soo-min herself commands the flagship, Admiral Kim Dae-ho, a massive battleship equipped with every weapon humanity has developed during the war. General Oh Hyun-soo coordinates ground forces for the invasion, while Captain Song Woo-jin leads the fighter squadrons that will provide air support. The Battle of Vorthak is the largest space combat in galactic history. Thousands of ships from both sides clash in the system, with laser fire and missile exchanges lighting up the darkness of space. Human tactics continue to surprise the Valerians, who cannot adapt quickly enough to the unpredictable and creative strategies of Earth's commanders. The ground invasion begins with human Marines leading the assault on Valerian defense positions. Major Park Yoon-ji leads her battalion in a direct attack on the Imperial Palace, fighting through layers of defenses that have protected the Emperor for millennia. The urban combat is intense, with humans and their alien allies working together to overcome Valerian resistance. Dr. Nam Ji-hai coordinates the technological warfare, using the sonic weapons she developed to disable Valerian electronics and communications. This gives the rebellion forces a crucial advantage as Valerian commanders lose contact with their units and cannot coordinate their defense effectively. Emperor Theron Vex makes his final stand in the Great Arena, where Admiral Kim was executed 2 years earlier. It is here that Captain Song Woo-jin confronts the Emperor in single combat, representing not just humanity, but all the oppressed species of the galaxy. The battle is broadcast across the Empire, showing everyone that their supposedly divine ruler can be defeated. When the Emperor falls, the Galactic Empire collapses almost immediately. Valerian forces across the galaxy surrender or flee, and the enslaved species declare their independence. The 3,000-year reign of the Empire ends not with negotiation or gradual change, but with complete victory for the forces of freedom. In the aftermath, humanity helps establish the Galactic Federation, a democratic alliance of free species. Earth becomes not the ruler of the galaxy, but its protector, ensuring that no species will ever again be enslaved by would-be conquerors. Admiral Kim Dae-ho is posthumously honored as the first hero of galactic freedom, and his sacrifice is remembered as the spark that lit the fire of rebellion. The story ends with a monument being erected on Vorthak, at the exact spot where Admiral Kim was executed. The inscription, written in every language of the galaxy, reads simply, "Here died a free human. Here began the freedom of the galaxy. Never forget, never surrender."